Here we go. So, welcome. Um, my name's Jo Kemp. If any of you have not come across me as of yet, hopefully we've all had a chance to meet so far. And Emily Duffield, our project officer for the IRCF program across all our communities, is here and helping me drive today. So, thank you for that. Just starting with an acknowledgement of country, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the country where I'm coming from today, as well as the Gulidjan and Gadabanud people as the traditional owners of the Colac Otway region, where the Investing in Rural Community Futures program Victoria is happening and just getting underway, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and just our gratitude and gratefulness for their ongoing care of country over many thousands of years in the past and as well into the future. So a little bit of an overview of how we're going to roll today. Here's our flow. So we've been busy consolidating all the great feedback that came through the survey based on the draft roadmap that we shared a couple of weeks ago. I'll go through and present all that feedback as related to each of the elements that we asked you to respond to around the vision and the principles and each of the pillars. And I think that way we can sort of surface all the things that we've heard, and then we'll have plenty of time to have a conversation and revert back to any things that might come up for you along the way. But as we do that, you're welcome to pop ideas, if you've got any thought bubbles, into the chat, or just note them down and then we can come back to them afterwards. So we'll review the principles and vision. We'll have a little touch base on the community asset mapping exercise and what the possibilities might be going forwards. We'll talk a little bit more about the 4 pillars and the connected nature of them. And then we'll dive into just work through each of the goals and suggested amendments or changes based on the feedback that we've received through the survey. And as I said, plenty of time for discussion and questions and talking about next steps. So the survey was intended to provide another opportunity for those that couldn't join us for the workshop when we really drafted the roadmap, to provide input and also to sense check what we'd consolidated from all those wonderful conversations and Butcher's papers and so on into that roadmap. So we received 15 responses to the survey, which I was pretty happy with. That's kind of about half of the people that we had in the room on the day in terms of numbers, and amazing feedback in that it's landed really well. So we asked people to rate each of the elements of the roadmap out of 5, 4 being, agree, and 5 being strongly agree with that particular element. And across the board, we received 100% people ranking them as either a 4 or a 5. So big sigh of, I guess, relief from us that it seems to have sort of hit the mark in a lot of ways. But there's still some, I think, amendments that need to happen. So we're going to jump to the next slide. Oh, thank you, George. Oh, comments. Yeah, thank you. So I thought I'd just to set the tone about some of the sorts of feedback that we received. So this is a great overall capture of our discussions throughout the workshop. I think all relevant conversations and ideas have been captured really nicely into this plan. The community has done a great job in identifying what it wants. It's a really good start to our program. I liked this one. It's encouraging to see such a strong emphasis on collaboration, leadership development and inclusive systems thinking. The alignment between shared principles and goal areas creates a solid foundation for collective action and long-term impact. So, yeah, that really kind of wraps up a lot of what we hope to get out of the program. Very happy with this as a roadmap and the first step to a healthier, more impactful not-for-profit sector for the Colac region. And another one, comprehensive document with clear vision and goals, requires clarification around the need for a leading agency. So I think that was a theme that we picked up across a few responses around that efficiency goal of a lead agency. So we'll certainly talk to that a little bit more and have a discussion about that as we go along today. Slide. So we started out with our workshop looking at, a shared vision of where we see the Colac not-for-profit sector in the next sort of 5 years, and came up with 9 key sort of statements, I suppose. And a couple of things that got touched or picked up on during the survey was one around a couple of amendments, which we've suggested here. So the diversity statement, suggesting that could pick up a little bit more on encouraging proactivity from our community members to get involved. So we've just added that in there. Our organisations are proactive, accessible, embrace diversity, and value all cultures, abilities, and identity. So just emphasising that. And there was also a suggestion that actually our diversity is a really important part of our community, and let's put that up the top, front and centre somewhere, just so it's, really visible. So we can either, suggest we move it to the top and the centre, or we can pop it right in the middle, but something along those lines, just to reflect that. And the other comment was really around wanting to amplify positive health and wellbeing as being really key for our people and organisations. So we had picked up on health and wellbeing under the recognised and value statement, which really relates to recognising that our organisations are valued for the role they play in contributing to health and wellbeing. But I think the comment in the survey was really around our own health and wellbeing, as in those that are involved in the organisations, being really well supported from that perspective. So suggesting that we amend the supportive statement, the one down on the bottom left corner, to just really call that out a little bit more. Our organisations support each other, foster positive health and wellbeing, and actively seek opportunities to work together and share resources. So that's, I think, just amplifying those couple of elements there. In terms of the principles, so how we agree to work together, again, 100% of people agreed or strongly agreed with the sentiment in those principles. There was a suggestion around adding in a resilience component. So in terms of really working through, being willing to work through challenges and differences together. So suggesting that we might add another statement or principle in there called resilient. We are willing to work through challenges and differences to adapt and benefit from new opportunities. So that's an add suggestion. And the amend suggestion was around collaboration and really ensuring that our impact is sustainable and that we have the energy to keep, turning up. So suggesting that the collaboration one is amended to incorporate that. So drawing our collective strengths and energy to create lasting and sustainable impacts. Lasting and sustainable impact. And then finally, around active participation and engagement was another piece. So suggest amending the broad participation to include a couple of other elements around we foster active participation and engagement across our community while also acknowledging people's time and other responsibilities. So acknowledging time was something that was really clearly called out during the workshop. So I think it's sort of balancing, we really want active engagement and participation, but also acknowledging people have other responsibilities. So a balance there. So calling those out. We then, as part of the workshop, we did that community asset X mapping exercise. And our intention during the workshop for that activity was to really bring to front of mind that actually Colac has a wonderful amount of existing assets, initiatives, activities, organisations happening in the community, and by framing them by pillar was really to sort of get our minds working for the next part of the workshop, which was around the goal setting along each of those pillar areas, and thinking about, how we can leverage the existing assets in our community. So the intention was that it wasn't going to create an exhaustive list of everything that's there, but just kind of be mindful of, all those sorts of things that that are already in place. And so there was a couple of suggestions that we could, include there, including Farm My School, that's happening at Colac Secondary College, and the recent Hey Mate, We've Got Your Back drought initiatives. So I think, those are great things to include. Some of the commentary we got was, this is something that we could potentially evolve over time. And I know that Colac has a wonderful, led by the Community Hub, a really wonderful community directory, which is enormous piece of work. And I think it's the best community directory I've ever come across, 100%. But yeah, whether this feels like this asset map sort of resource feels like it's valuable, it could be something that could evolve and be built on over time. And that's something that, the community could work on together with the community facilitator, for example. And it may include sub-themes. I think some of the, feeling like they're just dumped in buckets is not that helpful, but could they be categorised or themed, were some ideas. So if that felt relevant and useful, I'm just putting it out there as something to consider, then perhaps, that could even land as a goal under the efficiencies pillar, that a community asset map is developed and maintained to leverage for projects and activities throughout the program and into the future. So we might circle back on that, but yeah, just planting that as a seed.
Jo, Liz speaking.
Yeah.
I just think that being, I have to stop saying I'm new now, although some people who've been here, born and bred, would probably, reject that idea. But having been at the hub for 18 months, sometimes understanding the history of programs and projects and funding and, to have that all in one place, I think would be invaluable, especially when people collaborate and come together to look at funding other things, to be able to, I think I might have told you at some stage in a conversation when we did the first workshop and all the beautiful people came and talked about what they'd done. I was overwhelmed by how much this community had achieved, and thought this FRRR thing's in the bag. If Colac can do this, it can do so much more. I think it is a great asset that could be shared with everybody about what we've done in the past, what we're currently doing, and the roadmaps about what we want to do in the future. So I think it's whoever suggested that's a great idea.
It also we kind of didn't anticipate that it might develop into something along those lines and be an ongoing resource. But there was a similar energy around it in Swan Hill as well. They felt that it was really useful, and that they didn't do it justice on the day, and that there was more opportunity there. So if it feels like I said, it could become a goal under the efficiencies pillar as something that is developed and maintained along those lines. So we can certainly do that. Thanks, Liz. That was good perspective. So I just wanted to, before we kind of move back into the goals and the commentary that we've received along those lines, just reflect again on the 4 pillars. And really, when we've talked about them to date and the way we've represented them through our connection with you guys has been, that the 4 pillars, these are sort of the framework for how we prepare the roadmap and how we'll think about funding projects as we go along. And so they've been kind of 4 separate pillars, and just wanted to be really clear that they're actually all really interconnected as well. One pillar, an activity that might happen within one pillar will certainly sort of have tentacles that reach out and connect in with the other pillars. So just wanting to kind of help you think about it in that lens, that these are, whilst they're a good way to think about all the important things that impact the capacity of not-for-profits around people and governance and efficiencies and strategy, all of that. Think of them as sort of interconnected in nature as well. And an example, I just thought I might talk to an example of that. If we looked at, for example, there was lots of energy on the day around a lead agency, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that, and the usefulness of having a lead agency that can support community initiatives in an ongoing way. So that is a goal that sits under the efficiencies pillar. But if that came to fruition, then things in the other pillars would certainly connect into that and be related. So, for example, within the systems pillar, governance and financial management skills development for committees and staff and volunteers might be related to activities of the lead agency. Or under the people pillar, collective impact leadership training opportunities might be something that is related to a lead agency activity. And under, strategy, any advocacy efforts that might happen through the community might be something else that are linked. So just thought it might be helpful to frame it in that way, as well as we start to move forward with funding opportunities and really landing the roadmap. So we'll touch base on each of the pillars, and then, let's open up and have a chat about them more. And we can also revert back to any of these slides as we do that, if it's helpful. So the people pillar goals, again, really well received. A couple of amendments that have come out through the survey for suggestion is to just call out digital literacy skills as being a relevant thing for the community and building capacity around that area. So I think that speaks to the second goal around accessible and community-informed training frameworks for not-for-profits, but maybe we just really put some specificity or some examples in there around what that might look like. So that might look like digital literacy skills. It might look like leadership skills and such. So that was that one. And the third goal around recruitment and training processes, and I think a really good point was to really highlight succession planning as a key thing to build capacity around. So suggest that we kind of call that out in that goal: effective succession planning, recruitment and training processes to maintain staff and volunteers seems to fit together quite nicely. Next one is the strategy pillar. So those three, so this is probably where the most sense checking probably needs to happen, and particularly for those that maybe weren't in the room on the workshop day, and keen to have input for those that were, to help but one of the things that came out was the relevance of strategic planning and having great strategic plans to lead our organisation. So I felt like that might be a whole new goal around organisations have current and relevant strategic plans to guide their growth and activities. So that might be a fourth goal for this area. And then the other ones are really, as I said, sense checking around a comment that we picked up is often challenging to do without grants and government funding. So that's referring to the second goal around diverse income streams and being less reliant on grants. We can supplement and extend funds, but not necessarily replace them entirely. And I think the intention of this goal for clarity, and happy for others to lean in here, was that organisations should have the opportunity to explore and think about alternative and diverse income streams and be less reliant on grants. So that might look like, for example, exploring social enterprise models, or looking at other fundraising opportunities and really harnessing those sorts. For example, FRRR has fundraising accounts which supports organisations without DGR status to fundraise and leverage their donor network in that way and offer tax deductibility. So I think I don't know that the intention is around, necessarily thinking that we can go forth without, having significant grant funding, but I think there's a real opportunity there to look at where there might be alternative options to diversify a little bit. So that was my understanding on that one. And the other one was around the advocacy piece, and just noting that, which I agree with, that advocacy can be a really heavy, specific activity that requires a sustained effort, and, it can be a lot. But the intention of the IRCF program as a end sort of long game goal is that organisations that participate in the program and build their capacity across the board in their not-for-profit sector are able to advocate more effectively for their organisations or things that are happening in their community. And there's a lovely example from our Juni community partner, as they sort of adventured through their program. Their one and only Commonwealth Bank was closing in the community, and it was a real opportunity for organisations to collectively come together and advocate for a better outcome and maintain that bank in their community. And that's exactly what they did. And I think their reflection was, without the involvement of, the outcomes that they'd seen through the IRCF program really supported them to be in a place that they were ready and had the capacity to be able to do that sort of advocacy work for their community. So I think it can be, small outcomes or larger outcomes, but is a great sort of goal to have on there and, work towards that over time. I'm missing I'm not seeing the comments at the moment. So if there's anything relevant at the moment, or we can jump back to them. So keen to probably discuss that a little bit more, but we'll just work through the remaining pillars and then we can loop back, I think. So the systems pillar felt pretty good. There was some commentary around ensuring that organisations have sufficient IT skills, systems and equipment. So it felt like that might be good to add as a new goal in that space, in addition to the sort of governance and financial management skills, the recruitment processes and so on. If we add a new goal around organisations and their people have proficient IT skills, systems and equipment to operate effectively, seems to fit well there. Have we got one more? Efficiencies. Yeah, great. Okay. And this is where we get to the lead agency one. So sense checking. So the goal is a local umbrella organisation is identified, established to act as a lead agency for community initiatives. So this was something that was really discussed a lot at the workshop. And in fact, it was something, if you recall, and it landed in the in the roadmap, in the examples of how we might take a goal to action or into a project. As an example, it's something that we workshopped on the day to talk about what that potentially could look like. So as opposed to, we'll have our obviously community facilitator coming on board, and they'll be playing that real networking, connecting role, supporting organisations to access funding and looking for other opportunities that make sense to the IRCF program. So that's sort of one role of the program. I see there was sort of mention of, how is a lead agency different to a not-for-profit working group, for example? And in fact, a not-for-profit working group might evolve into a lead agency. But I think the intention is that, and completely separate to, for example, we had the community hub act as the lead agency for the expression of interest process. And that was, at the time, that was sort of we invite someone to step up, play that role, which they did beautifully, but hopefully made it really clear that there wasn't an expectation that there would be sort of ongoing responsibility as a lead agency in that respect. So if we park that aside, we've been through that process, that's happened, and Colac is one of our partner communities. But I think this is a real future-facing. There could be an opportunity for a lead agency to to identify an appropriate organisation that may be existing or otherwise, to play a role in supporting sort of collective activity for the community. So let's talk about that in a moment. The other one, I just wanted to reflect on a comment around the third one, shared local facilities and spaces to avoid duplication, amplify resources and promote collaboration. So there was a comment around, so what do shared resources look like? And just acknowledging that there's a need to explore, what that might look like, and the no-goes, whether there's concerns about doing that, what are the possibilities, perhaps examples of how this has worked before, which made me think of a few projects that I've come across in my time at FRRR that have been funded, where organisations have sought a grant with a lead organisation to purchase a community trailer that acts as for transporting equipment. It has the barbecue and chairs and tables. That's great for events, the things that, a small community group would need to put on a picnic in the park event or whatever it might be. So, yeah, might be an example of, an agency and applies for a grant on behalf of the community to get a resource like that is then able to be used by other local groups as things come up, and that can be booked in and so on. So it might include actual physical spaces and rooms and how they might be shared for community activity or what have you. So I think that's kind of something that evolves over the program of what that might look like, and certainly just acknowledging that there's sort of exploring to do there about how that might work and what it might relate to, but have seen it work really well in a range of sort of circumstances in other communities. So let's go. I've done lots of talking, and but I'm pleased to say we've got half an hour left in our window to kind of explore a little bit more, and I think maybe open up any more input and have a look at the comments as well. But I thought just also anticipating that there may be a question about community facilitator recruitment and what's happening there. We're certainly well down the path and working towards being able to announce a community facilitator in the next couple of weeks, but not quite there yet. So excited that we're moving in the right direction, and look forward to announcing that in time, and will be wonderful to get someone on the ground to really start driving some more conversation and momentum. So that's about as much update as I can give there. Shall we stop sharing, Emily? And just, I guess, maybe in the first instance, we'll have a look at the comments, but reflections, or if anyone else would like to sort of input about what their perspective was about the conversation we had at the workshop and the interest in a lead agency type situation, or anything else. Feel free to unmute or raise your hand or whatever works for you. I'm going to try and have a look at these. Thanks, Sonia. Yes, sharing of resources. I can see your comment there. Reduce costs by sharing what we have and not reinventing the wheel. Totally agree. As well as awesome human resources, indeed. Lots of great human resources in your community. Not-for-profit policy bank, policies and procedures. Love these ideas. Questions about, lead agency. And I think, if that's just looking at Sonia's comment around what type of support would a lead agency receive, considering we are all time poor, underfunded? Yeah, so all considerations that would need to be explored as part of that. Maybe a committee, board skills. Yeah. Yeah, so support for governance, yeah, could be a really good shared opportunity, collective opportunity. I can hear Elizabeth, sorry.
G'day. Just wanted to find out today, because we were at the Colac grants forum, the event, there was at least 2 groups that I touched base with that would be interested in joining this as well. So just had to do and I actually got Liz to come and help me do the sales pitch, because I was I'm really trying to explain what it's all about and not to scare them away, but and then how to actually then get them involved. So I'll give them details to Emily and to Liz. Is that right? Is that
please? You can, if you've got Emily's, hopefully you should have Emily's email.
Yes.
If you send through to her, she can pop it on our register and make sure that they're in the mix. Yeah, we want to cast the net wide.
So is there a flyer or something we can do up so we can actually then just hand out or give out or, forward to people that we might know but are interested? Or just do it's a bit of advertising?
Yeah, I mean, if a 1 page or something like that would be helpful, we can look at doing that. Emily's awesome at that stuff. The other thing that comes to mind is the information package that we prepared about the program that we circulated before the recent workshop. That might be good, just has a bit more depth in it as well. We also have a web page, so maybe we can, about the program, which gives a nice summary, so maybe we can share those kind of things. But thanks, that's great to have more people involved and organisations.
Yeah, you did an awesome networking job there, Elizabeth.
I've heard a few that got grants. Anyone else in the room on the screen that was grant recipients?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, amazing. Awesome. So I'm getting a sense it's a bit quiet, that that sort of summary that I gave around, the potential of a lead agency and the purpose there kind of sits well with you. That's sort of reflected what the intention was and what that goal's about. Oh, George, sorry. Please jump in.
Just on the leadership function for an organisation. So I think once the coordinator's in place and the groups can come together and make a collective decision around either nominations or suggestions around which or who wants to become that lead organisation. We don't want to make assumptions that it'd be the hub. There's other agencies out there that may have similar aspirations, and so I think it's really important that we remain that transparency around decision making and through the coordination of meetings and workshops that will happen in the future. I think that to bring people together, and if it's an open and transparent process, decisions are made jointly, and the formation of possibly a steering group that then looks, and the danger of a steering group is when you have 30 plus not-for-profits coming together and each one a member, it becomes quite big. But at the same time, the amount of ideas that will come from a bigger group and with that broad lens, I think it really poses a challenge to find a space for all organisations to come down and meet with each representative. But I think that process is really important, that people are given the opportunity to participate at that level, or just come in if there's a need for them to seek whether it be funding or some sort of resources. Sonia's put it there nicely around sharing resources for an event. It might be we're running a barbecue but we can't get enough cooks, those sorts of things. They're really simple stuff to the really high-end stuff, and I think through whoever the coordinator will be really good in facilitating that process. So no single agency, not-for-profit, is seen as being the management, if you know what I mean. We don't want to create another entity that becomes a little bit power sensitive or power central to everyone else's needs. So by having a steering group and so that would then input into the lead agency about what their expectations are doing, and so terms of reference, all that sort of stuff. And I think that'll grow and develop once we've got the coordinator in position and help facilitate those conversations. Because on individual conversations, we're not going to get the full picture for what people want. So, and it's a really great start with the roadmap. I went through it and spoke to Liz the other day, and she put up those ideas through just the one channel rather than multiple channels. But yeah, it's some really great work that the community's already done on that stuff. So I'm really feeling really positive and confident that we're heading in the right direction, and there's lots of energy just waiting to be tapped. So thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, George. Agree. I feel like there's a bit of kind of nervous energy to get started. I would also just say, we've got a runway of time. We've got 5 years. Some of these goals are kind of medium to longer term goals potentially, and some might be, things that we can achieve sooner and start, getting funding out to support fairly soon. So, yeah, just with that kind of notion that, some of these things might take time to have a lot of conversation and work through together and work out what makes sense for the community. Any other thoughts? Welcome. We're happy to pop up any of the other slides if it's helpful to go back and have a think about some of those suggestions and amendments. Yeah, and if they're feeling okay, I feel like they're very much informed by what we heard in the survey. So happy to do that. I guess in terms of next steps, should we pop up that final slide, Emily, and then we can stick around for as much conversation as people are keen for. Oh, Josiah, hello.
How you doing? Yeah, just kind of, sorry, thought I'd just butt in just before we change topic.
Oh, good.
Around that lead agency idea, I kind of wanted to get your perspective on it potentially, or FRRR's. Like in my kind of thought of potentially what I see it from, kind of just, everyone's involvement. It's potentially so for longevity. So it's not just a nice 5 years and then voila, it's over.
Yeah.
Potentially what I guess FRRR, from your experience and seeing other communities do potentially something similar, what your perspective on that would be?
Yeah, so we often talk about backbone organisations in communities, and often being, so an organisation that plays a significant sort of leadership role in their community and can support a range of initiatives, and they would probably have a really broad purpose in terms of their governing document and so on, and the types of activities that they do. Some communities clearly have that just that's sort of evolved over time. Doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but often that's a really good sort of local resource organisation to have. Sometimes it's council that plays that role, and they play it really well. But as we know, councils in different communities, in different sort of LGAs and shires and such, do turn up in the way that they connect with their community in different ways. And so that's not always the case. Sometimes, if I talk back to Junee again, one of our community partners, the Junee Community Hub was really evolved as a key organisation for their community through their IRCF journey. And right at the early stages of their, just like Colac having these conversations now, they identified that they were missing an organisation that could play that role for their community. And they very much got engaged in sort of that advocacy around the community bank example that I talked to and so on. And were playing, originally they were playing quite a, just a defined, less expansive role in their community at the outset of the IRCF program. And then they started to broaden. They spent a lot of time doing strategic planning and thinking that through in the first instance as part of the program to really understand what their the best purpose for their organisation was in the community. And from there, in fact, the IRCF program, in fact, funded a coordinator role for someone to take over manage the operations of the organisation so that the CEO could step away and actually do this chunky work around sort of rethinking purpose and doing the strategic planning work and so on. So that was supported through the IRCF program and then really enabled them to, think about, where do we want to go as an organisation? So that's just an example. But yeah, could talk to other examples in community where there's an organisation that's a really great asset and plays that sort of role and has evolved over time.
Yeah, and I guess I'm kind of reading the online room in kind of feeling that I think we kind of have twigs in our mind of potentially the style or kind of agency that we know in Colac that would potentially be suitable for something like that. But I think even before we get to that point of really understanding what kind of agency could do it would be best to understand almost like a position description of what is expected of that organisation and what kind of things they potentially need to have in their arsenal for it to even be possible. And then, working together and just to understand, then who do we feel comfortable for that organisation to be? And I think we'll all kind of have our own kind of points of view on that as well. And it'd be great to work with you guys as well and get your perspective on that as FRRR. But that was kind of just where I've been sitting with that. I think it's really great for, I kind of think of, what Geelong's got with their, I can't remember, the Geelong Community Foundation or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
that
give where you live
operates as its own kind of like a working group or foundation, whatever you want to call it. That can then work as an umbrella for just the community to work together. And I could see that being something we could work towards. It doesn't necessarily have to sit under, the likes of Colac Area Health or Colac Shire. Long term, it could move out into something like that, which I think would be beneficial. But that's where I'm. Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
sorry.
I just wanted to. Sorry, Joe. Just if
Go
you don't mind me jumping in. Oh, thank you. It's so interesting you say that, Josiah, because I've been hearing this all across the region over the last couple of weeks, and I think there's a big piece about understanding what the different governance opportunities are. Like, what are the different ways of even going about thinking about setting up those governance structures? Because I think we tend to default to what we know. So, we better incorporate something and we'll get a president and a treasurer and have your subcommittees. And that's what we all know and that's what we're all familiar with. But we know that leads to the duplication and the burnout. So I wonder if, as a precursor step, there's a governance training capacity. These are the different things that are possible. These are different ways that you can actually look at stewarding community activity, and it can be through a foundation, it could be through Colac Area Health, but putting some of that in front of people to say these are the things that are possible, and then figuring out what's going to fit for that community, for the Colac community. I think there's a real capacity piece around understanding those different governance arrangements and opportunities, because it's not one size fits all, and it doesn't have to be either. I think that's a huge opportunity for the lead agency to really design a governance framework that fits and serves the community. It's really good.
Yeah, thanks, Annabelle. I think that speaks really well and kind of expands on that example of in Junee, they did that work in the beginning as around, okay, what could this look like? And if, the community centre makes sense to hold that role, well, how do we prepare ourselves to do that? And, doing the work in the first instance before, being able to kind of move into that space. So, great points. And I think this is, part of the early days of exploration, and certainly we can help with some ideas. And I'm sure Annabelle, in your kind of lens across as a regional foundation across the Southwest, would have some great examples to share as well.
Yeah, and we're just seeing some real innovation as well around how people are approaching this. And I think that's super exciting, is not to just default back to the way we've always done things, is the way we have to keep doing things. Because we're looking at trying to create efficiency for all of the not-for-profits across the region. So, yeah, I think this is providing some of those alternatives and putting that information up front, it can be really useful.
And also speaks to our intention of, being innovative and trying different ways. Elizabeth, I can see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to, I'm going to agree with Annabelle about the innovation and yourself. Just that Colac is unique, that we actually, because I've actually, much to the Give Where You Live people's inability, I would think. I actually went to one of their meetings years ago because it came up on as an Eventbrite event that they were going to discuss housing, and I went along. They'd never talked to a dairy farmer before. They were just blown away with practicality. They were just and they just and I actually know personally the lady that does the housing, and she's still stagnating. They're not getting anywhere. It's like we just got to keep coming up with forget what they've done and just try and just brainstorm heaps of new stuff. I just think they just keep, they're not reinventing the wheel. They've just gone backwards. And I was involved when I worked at Geelong Hospital with my pay. They just basically assumed you were going to donate to Give Where You Live. So there's been a lot of, there's a lot of personal, community ownership of Give Where You Live too. So it's the way it's been funded, it's the way it's been managed and things like that. The guy that was CEO has since moved on, that I spoke to or went to that meeting with. But and for Colac to aspire to that, it's a really tricky one. It's that may be something like we can do something a little bit different, I think. So that's my 20 cents.
Thank you. Oh, Liz, are you talking to us? Or trying to?
Maybe. Yeah, man, technology. Well said, Elizabeth. And I think that speaks to something I might have put in my feedback. I'd like to see the flavour of how we move forward with the word pride in it. That we're proud of who we are. We're proud of our community. We're proud of what we can be. We're proud that we can leverage what we've already got. And we don't need to be the little sister to Geelong or the little, whatever. We've got enough here. We are enough. And we're going to leverage off that with this program's help. I think we need to peel away all of that stuff and just decide, okay, at this point in 2025, what are the things, we need to do to move forward and stitch up, and there'll be stuff to drop and there'll be stuff to create, and it's very exciting. So looking forward to it.
Liz. Thanks, Liz. Love the energy, and hopefully we picked up on pride in the vision principles, but we can review that if it's not there explicitly enough. Shall we just cover off on our final sort of points around next steps, and we can still stay on the line if there's any other sort of burning conversation that needs to happen where we can certainly hear. So where to from here? We'll update kind of a potentially final version of the roadmap and we can leave the survey open for another week or so, probably actually until after the school holidays, if anyone has any further kind of input that they'd like to see reflected in there. Once the final version is circulated, we'll be adding that to the FRRR's website, so it's easily available. It will be great to probably do some final sense checking, and for once the community facilitator comes on board, to be able to have any kind of final conversations along those lines about really kind of bedding that down. As I said, the facilitator will hopefully be announced in the next couple of weeks, and then it's an opportunity to start, having conversations and picking up on where the priority areas are for your organisation, and more collectively to start thinking about accessing some funding through the program. So what I can tell you, we're still working in the background to finalise what would be grant guidelines and details around accessing the funding, and that will come soon. But what I can tell you about that is that project ideas will obviously need to align to our roadmap pillar areas, and connection with the community facilitator to discuss your project and opportunity, and access application details will be part of the process in terms of doing that. Anticipate and having sort of that sort of more specific detail around funding applications and opening when that will happen in the next few weeks. But I think there'll probably be sort of plenty to do between now and then to just finalise tying a bow on the first version of the roadmap, noting that it'll be something that's revisited annually. So it's not doesn't have to be perfect, but it just needs to be a good point in time now to work towards, to inform us for sort of the next 12 months when we revisit. All right, we can stop sharing. It's 5 minutes to 2. If we're going to stay on the line, but if anybody needs to get on with their day and afternoon, you're most welcome to do that. Thank you for jumping in and for your ongoing sort of interest and energy in the process. Feeling really excited that, we're just about to launch into the next phase, and everything's really coming together to enable us to do that around the roadmap and facilitator and funding coming together. So it's great. I'm excited.